The broadcast is live. This is the Health, Love, Life, and Adventure Show with Coach Arnie. This is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, TV and podcast #1 Internet Talk Network. So here we are. Again, the best way to get a hold of me is just give me a call, or you can email me right there. And we're still working on lots of stuff. And every day it seems like things change, but we're here to hopefully deliver you some good information that you can put to work today. You know, it's one thing to get information. It's another thing to get information that you can use. It's like going to a workshop. You know, how many of us have been to a weekend workshop and you get all this great information, then you take your notebook and you go, well, that was great. Let me just close that up and move on my way. Well, that's hopefully not what I'm trying to do. I'm hopefully to give you some information that you could put to work today, because we're going to talk about the keys to surviving and thrive in a long-term relationship. You know, this topic always comes up for me about once a year, which is this time of year because it's my anniversary. And it was funny, last year for my 35th anniversary, a good friend of mine was, and I've got to connect with her. We had a couple meetings on, she was putting together a book on people that had been married at least 25 years because she thought that was great. I mean, she hadn't been married yet, and she was closing in on 50 and was still looking for somebody, but was intrigued by the whole, what are the keys? What are the keys to being able to find somebody and stay with somebody? Believe me, you know, 25 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said, are you kidding me? It ain't going to happen. It's not going to last because stuff happens. And we're going to talk about a lot of these things. And I'm going to kind of go about it in a different way. I'm going to give you some keys first, and then we're going to look at how can we get there. So we're going to back into it after kind of give you some ideas because, you know, look, long-term relationships are just not meant for everybody. I mean, I have a client, wonderful lady, wonderful. She's in her late 60s. She might even be 70. She's been married, I want to say 3 times. And her and I have been into some pretty respectful discussions that she just feels that as you grow away from your partner, that you move on. There's no reason to fight it and to go through it. But again, I just smile at her and love her because she's been through 3 tough relationships. And it's not that she has a mean word to say about it. Well, one maybe, but mainly she just says, hey, look, we just moved apart. And she's got 4 kids. You know, they're all grown, but I guarantee you she can look back on those 4 kids and say, gosh, if they had maybe a little more stable environment, but even in her world too. I mean, you know, she's had to assume the role of man and woman, which has been tough on her as well. It's made her tougher, but not everybody is tough. Not everybody is cut out to be that. So we're gonna try to see what are the keys, because especially in today's world, I mean, when you're talking about being married 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, most young people will tell you you're freaking crazy. Okay. And then we all start off that way. Oh, you know, because you take a vow. You know, a vow used to be a big thing today. And I don't know I don't even know if most people even understand what the word vow means. And so when you start to look at these things, and we look at how society has made it very easy and very acceptable to just move on. And remember when marriage started, because, you know, marriage, you know, and I don't want to get into the whole defining all that stuff. That's a whole different show. But when you marry somebody, especially in the days of Leviticus, they were very stringent on the rules for marriage and the rules for not being married. And, you know, it, as I had a discussion with somebody today who's been married 30 years, and it was somebody that I used to coach many years ago, so it's kind of fun to talk about. But he saw that my anniversary was yesterday, and he said, "I've been married 30 years." I said, "Wow, that's fantastic." And but we kind of swerved into this discussion about how the divorce rate has gone so high. You know, it's creeping around 50%. And for those in second marriages, it's even higher. It's higher than that. And we'll talk about some of that stuff here. But in the same point, when you're looking at 50%, it's kind of like 50% fatherless home situation. Well, there you go, right? They kind of parallel each other a little bit there. You know, as dad leaves the home because of a divorce, you know, mom assumes the responsibility. And just talking to Cece here, who's running this network, and how she's going to put together a going solo dad group. There's a lot of dads that I know that are going through this, the breakup thing, and being a dad. They're clueless. They're struggling with how to do this thing, and it's hard. It's hard. So let's get started here. I want to just go through 7 keys that I think are important to set the foundation for having a thriving and surviving relationship with somebody for a lifetime. A lifetime. I can't tell you how many people, because I've been working with older people for 36 years now. 36 years. And I can't tell you how many people I've run into that have been married post 60 years. I met a couple before her husband passed away who had been married, I think they might have been the longest, 72 years. She's still kicking. Her husband passed away a few years ago, but she's still kicking. And wow. Isn't that something? Some of you might be going, are you kidding me? So, but there is something to it. From a health standpoint, there's a lot to it. I mean, people that are in stable relationships are genuinely healthier because of a lot of that is promiscuity. You know, being with multiple partners can be a problem. That's some of that stuff. Also, some mental health stuff because of anxiety, depression, that kind of stuff. But we're not going there. So let's start. Number 1, trust. And I put trust number 1 because it's important. And number 2, it's my number 1. Because trust for me, whether it's a personal relationship or with a partner, or a business relationship or a friend relationship, doesn't matter. Trust is huge because, you know, I was raised by a generation that was all about trust. I mean, the greatest generation was all about trust. So us baby boomers, we got that. We got that, and then we developed trust in people until we didn't. And the problem with our generation is we got let down a lot until we finally said, screw this, let's just go with the best deal. Okay, and we started this whole divorce thing. Sorry. The beginning part of the baby boomers back that were born in 1946, by the time they got married in the late 60s and were married a few years, bammo, they started getting divorced because they started to because most of those ladies were marrying for safety, you know, somebody that could take care of them and have children with, and then they figure they get love from the children, until one day the children were teenagers and had boyfriends and girlfriends, and all of a sudden they were sharing their love with somebody else. And all of a sudden, mom goes, wait a minute, that's supposed to be for me. And then they looked across the room there when the kids were gone in college or often married themselves. And they looked across the room there at some guy scratching his belly on an easy chair going, who the heck is that? And before they knew it, they go, I don't want to be married to that guy. I'm going to go out and find love. Because now they had, all the novels that they've read and the movies about finding true love. And now it's time to go love. They had security, they had family. Now it's time to go find love. So money, security first, love second. And that kind of started the divorce trend craze. And it still kind of continues today. But so trust is a big thing. Is like, who is this person? Can I count on them? Are they going to be there for me? Are they going to, let's get real. Are they going to cheat on me? Are they going to be the same person to a point? Because we all change. That I got to know in our whether it's dating and I'm a big fan of dating. I'll explain that later. Is this the same person or is it somebody different? And but trust is huge. And you'll notice in many types of relationships, whether it's intimate, personal relationships or business, political, whatever, people will start to accuse you of things that they're doing. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So you got to be, so trust to me is huge. Trust in any relationship is a huge key to surviving and thriving. Number two, intimacy. I mean, in an intimate relationship, if you're not able to be intimate with your partner for whatever reason, and it doesn't always have to be sexual, that relationship will struggle. It just will. You've got to have some kind of physical connection with that person. I think it's important, and the research bears it out. And you'll hear some weird things from different couples about, well, I don't care, they can go do that. No, that's not a healthy relationship. That's just one that's surviving, I guess. They're certainly not thriving. But finding that partner that you can be intimate with is very important. It's super important because love is a basic human need. Strip it all away, guys. And love is a basic human need. Do you know that the number one fear on the planet, whether you're in America, China, Australia, I don't care where you're at, Canada, South America, the number one fear is I'm not going to be loved. Now, remember what I said earlier. A lot of women get that love from children. They get that love from children. And some people, a lot of psychologists now have kind of tampered that down to connection. That's fine. That's kind of a watered down, close connection with people. But deep down, people desire love. That's exactly right. So those intimate relationships are powerful as a key to surviving and thriving. Number three, who are you with your partner? Are you the same person? Do you change? Are you one person in public and then a complete different person in private? I grew up with something like that. It's like, geez, somebody that was wonderful in public and a complete jerk in private. Is that you? Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you are a wonderful, loving person, but then in public, you're a complete a-hole. Either way, I'm not sure if it works. You may make it work, you may not. I mean, obviously in description 2, better off on the community. Excuse me, it's better off. I mean, let's see, it's better off in your relationship. In situation A, there where you're a jerk to your partner, but you're a wonderful person, is better for your community. But I don't know. But isn't this something you need to know? Is your partner somebody you can count on? Doesn't it circle back to trust? Is your partner somebody you can count on? You know, and we're going to get into some more of this stuff. When you turn up the heat a little bit, you know, or when they're in closed doors, how do they respond to you? When they're, I use some of my measuring sticks are, how are you around children? How are you around older people? And how are you around animals? That tells me a lot. I love to, what I call, observe the fruit. Somebody called me a fruit inspector. You know, I'm not judging, I'm just observing. So if I see somebody treating older people or children and animals in a way that's not kind, that's a red flag for me. That's a big red flag for me. So, so these are just little things. Who you are in private, is that who you really are? And it's a key. I mean, if you're off, I guess the word today is authentic. If you're authentic, it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. So let's go to number 4. Do they make you better? Does your partner make you a better person? Do they elevate you? Do they make you a better person than you would normally be? Do they add value to you? You know, or do they bring you down? I mean, isn't this kind of related to the last one? Or do they kind of pull you down? Do they push you up or pull you down? This is something to think about. I know a lot of people, when I've done a lot of coaching with couples, that in private, you know, they'll tell me, gosh, this guy just, or this lady just continually, you know, pulls me down. She or he rips me or does this, or, and when you do it in public, look, when you edify somebody in public, you pull them up, you elevate, and that's powerful. When you pull them down in public, that's almost like the kiss of death. It's horrible. And it's something to really think about. It's one thing to pull them down behind closed doors. It's another thing to pull them down in public. It's the kiss of death. All right, so there's the first 4. We'll come back here in just a second after we take a quick break with Cece. Looks like we are back with the Health, Love, Life, and Adventure Show. And we're talking about how to have and create a long-term relationship. We had talked about our first four keys. We're going to go to number 5 now. And that has to do with kind of an important topic, conflict resolution. I mean, that's important whether you're in a personal relationship or a business relationship or any relationship. Conflict resolution is hard. It's very hard. And so it's one of the keys is, in my mind, is forgiveness. Being able to forgive. It doesn't have to mean forget. It means forgive. You know, holding grudges in a personal relationship is not good. You know, one of the things you may have heard of before is going to bed angry is not a good idea. But let's look at the pro and con of that. Sometimes if you're having a conflict, depending on what time it is or where you are in it, and depending on the emotion of it, yes, it might be the best thing is to resolve it, figure out what's going on and get to it. Okay. But sometimes taking a break, and if that means going to bed, because sometimes, as they say, sleeping on it allows people to diffuse. I mean, hey, look, even if you got to spend the night on the couch, that's a lot better than not having resolution and waking up with a clear, rested brain that allows you to forgive and move on, or forgive and learn, or forgive. And because forgiveness is great for you, because that's really who it's for. But asking for forgiveness and not being genuine about that is just as bad. It's not going to help the situation out. So just telling someone you forgive them doesn't mean jack. Or excuse me, forgiving them is one thing, but asking for forgiveness is powerful if you mean it. Because even if you, I mean, I've done it. Even if you know you're completely right, but you humble yourself and say, look, can you forgive me for getting angry? Can you forgive me for saying that word? Can you forgive me for not trust? Whatever it might be. Remember, you're forgiving them to get rid of this burden that you're carrying around. It's huge. It's a powerful tool. And sometimes that's all people want to know, because listen, if it is to be, it's up to me. If you want resolution, you're going to have to take the stand. Now, if you're in a business situation and you're with somebody that doesn't have the skills you're looking for, do you want to go to business with that person? I don't know. You have to decide that. But if you're in a relationship with that person and you want to stay in that relationship, it's up to you. It's up to you to resolve that situation, which means you may have to take control, which means you may have to ask for forgiveness, which means you may have to be the one that moves on versus, sit there and keep swinging. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about resolving the situation. Forgiveness is the key if it's done appropriately. Number 6, how about handling adversity outside the relationship? Man, oh man, in my own life, that's been huge. Handling adversity that happened from the outside, traumatic situations, jobs, businesses, you name it. I've had it happen. Death. How do you deal with that? Some people don't. Some people have had a traumatic illness, death, something in their family, and it just wrecks everything because they allow it to wreck everything. And, what do you do? How do you handle that? A lot of that comes from trust. If this is the same person that you knew and grew with, or maybe it happened early on in the relationship and you're going, whoa, this is not what I want. And maybe that's your signal to say, hey, look, this may not work. It might be better than 30 years in to find out. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a client many, many years ago. I'm saying, gosh, probably 13 years ago. and he was married, had 3 kids. I want to say 3, maybe 4, 3 or 4 kids. And one was still in diapers, and literally found out that his wife was a Wiccan. I guess it's a form of a witch. And he did. And I was over there. I knew her, but he was going through stuff in the garage and found this box of witchcraft stuff. And he confronted her, and she goes, yeah. Well, the next thing I know, he's divorced. You know, he's on his own, dealing with 4 kids, trying to make all that work. But wouldn't that have been nice to know, you know, maybe 6, I think his kids were like 7, 8 years old. Maybe 10 years earlier when he met her? Something to think about, huh, guys? Something to think about. All right. Handling adversity. How do you manage it? What does it do to you? Can you? It's a good one. How about your financial values? Do you have the same or similar financial values? And these are things you can learn too, but values are one thing. I mean, values are important. There's stuff that we grew up with and we really treasure. And so if someone's not willing to be, I mean, if your financial values are way out of alignment, this may be problematic for you. Same with raising your children. I mean, I talk to couples, or used to, a lot. And if you don't discuss how you're going to raise your children, don't you think that's important? Because when all of a sudden it comes up and you're like going, oh, well, I didn't know that's what you believe. Yeah, because you never talked about it. I mean, it's kind of important. I think it is. How you're going to raise your children, you know, what kind of school you're going to go to, how are you going to, talk to them, teach them. I mean, you're talking about little kids up to 4 years old. You only get to do that once. It's a powerful time. And if you miss that opportunity, you missed it. It's gone. And some people turn over to somebody else. Maybe it's a daycare or something, but you're going to miss it. And that it's so powerful. That's a bonding time, a learning time. And if you don't discuss that before you have kids, you're making a big mistake. You're making a big mistake. And then the last one in that keys is your spiritual values. What do you believe in? What if you have a religion, what is your religion? I mean, these are things that kind of you need to talk about because they can be very disruptive to a relationship, even getting started. Super restrictive. They can really put the hammer to it. So those are 9 things that I like to talk about when I'm dealing with a couple that is trying to make a decision. Is this something we want to do? Is this something long-term that I want to work for? So the question becomes then, how do we get here? How do we get to a point where we got all these things going on and we're thriving? We're not only surviving, but we're thriving. How do we get there? And so I made a short list of things that I think are important that are going to help us get here. And a lot of this is related, guys, to the point that of why I'm a big fan of dating. And when I bring that up today, people look at me and they go, oh God, here we go. Because they don't want anything to do with dating. They either want some knight in shining armor or some princess to just fall out of the sky into their lap. Or, they want somebody to just introduce them to somebody and all of a sudden it's just love at first sight and the rest is a fairy tale, right? But it doesn't work that way. Let's go back. Let's go the other side of that. It takes a lot of dirt. You got to move a lot of dirt to find some diamonds, right? Or gold. You got to move the dirt. It's work. It's work to find that special person. So dating is one way to move some dirt around, guys. It really is. So some of the tools that I use are, and one of them is a simple personality assessment. There's a ton of them. Everybody and their brother's got a personality assessment. So find something that's simple. I use DISC, but all it gives you an idea of what kind of person this is, how they deal with people, but it helps. It helps because usually opposites attract. So if you're a very direct person, you might attract somebody that's not. That might be a little more quiet, a little more reserved, and vice versa. If you're somebody that's reserved and quiet, you might attract somebody that's a go-getter, a hustler. Get it? So what happens? They attract, then they attack each other. I was telling this story this morning that a lot of times women will attract this strong, you've heard this, the strong silent type. And then one day they're sitting there at dinner and she's telling stories and going on. He's just listening like he always does. And finally when she says, "Hey, Jim," or "Hey, honey, why don't you ever say anything?" And he goes, "I don't know, because you're always talking." Because see, he's a good listener and she's a good talker. And so when they first met, it was perfect because now she had somebody who's going to listen to her. And he was in love with her. I'm going to listen to her all day long. I can listen to her all day long. Until one day she wanted to change him because he wasn't talking enough. And he was like, "Whoa, I don't know. It's not what I do." See? And so he gets a little confused. So chances are he may try and it may not come easy to him and he might get pretty good at it. Or he may go, I don't want to do this. And he walks away. And a big part of that is if you were upfront about it, if you knew your personality and then you attracted yourself knowing that you attracted somebody who's opposite of you, you have to understand that and accept it unless it's one of your deal breakers. If it's a deal breaker, then you need to move on. Because if you're trying to get your partner to be this dynamic, forceful leader, all the things that you might be, and that person resists you, because that's what they'll do, you're going to get some resistance there. Then you're going to get some resentment. And then you're going to get rejection. And then you're going to get what's called repression. And that's where they just kind of hang out in the man cave and don't really do much with you. Why should they? They've got all this stuff. It's a nice tool to kind of see where you're at and allows you to evaluate a little bit yourself. And because if you know yourself, you're going to kind of be able to sidestep some of these potential really bad situations, guys. I mean, we're talking really bad. All right. So that's a good tool. Let's look at another tool, a value assessment. We talked about values earlier. You can do a value. What do you value? Do you value your spiritual life, God? Do you value your family? Do you value money? Do you value a good job? Do you value honesty, integrity, trust? What are your values? What do you put a lot of faith in? I mean, if you have values that aren't, some people may not care if somebody steals or has an affair or is tells the truth or is trustworthy or is on time. I mean, if one of your deal breakers is when we're going somewhere, you're gonna be on time. I'll be early. I'll be on time. And they're never early or on time. It may seem kind of silly. But the reason I'm saying is because so many of us go through this. And that's one of your deal breakers. You're going to have to walk away because people aren't going to change dramatically a value, something that they value. If they value certain things, their religion, family, whatever it might be, and it doesn't line up with yours, you're going to have to see that. And as soon as you see it, there's a good chance you're going to have to walk away because it won't change. You got to understand this. You trying to change something that's a value of somebody that's important to them is a disaster. You will create resistance to it. You will create, that rejection, and eventually they'll just not want to spend time with you. Okay. So, you're going to go through those 4 R's. So just be aware of that. But a value assessment will at least it puts things on the table. Isn't that nice? When you have clarity in a relationship, you know what you're dealing with. I mean, it's so important. Let me give you another reason, because I've been studying relationships a long time. One of the reasons that people stayed married for 50, 60, 70 years back in the day, people that were born in the 20s and 30s, is they grew up in a small community and they got to know their partner. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was at college. And they spent a lot of time with this person. They got to know their family. They got to know a lot about them. And so they knew them. They knew who their family was. They knew where they went to church or didn't go to church. They knew where they worked. They knew what their values were. They knew who they hung around. That was huge. Today, with swipe left and right and all that stuff, and some of you might meet, indiscriminately somewhere. I mean, you don't know anything about them. And all of a sudden you're dating, or worse yet, you just jump into the relationship. You're like going, whoa, what happened here? Who is this person? I don't even know who they are. And you don't. You don't know who they are. And it's a disaster. It's a disaster just waiting to happen. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. So you got to be careful with that. Let me go to the next one here that I wrote down. Love languages. I think love languages are pretty powerful. Some people joke around about them. That's not so. No, I think love languages are pretty doggone important for helping you choose the right partner, because it allows you to communicate with them. So if you know somebody's love language, you can talk to them in their language. Maybe it's compliments. You can compliment them. Maybe it's acts of service. You can do things for them. Maybe it's gifts and you need to buy them things once in a while. Maybe it's quality time and you need to spend time with them. I don't know. But knowing that, and knowing that when you address their love language, that they light up inside and outside, isn't that enough to inspire you to use their love language? I know it is for me. If it's not for you, you haven't used it yet. But it's a powerful tool that will help you to talk to your partner in a way that they understand. It's so important. It's beyond the golden rule that we have in the Bible. The golden rule in the Bible assumes that you love yourself, which means you take care of yourself. You treat yourself well. You nurture yourself. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people hate themselves. I don't want that person loving me the way they love themselves. Are you kidding me? I'm taking it up a notch. I want the platinum rule. The platinum rule is I want you to love somebody the way they want to be loved, the way they want to be talked to, the way they want to be taken care of. It may not be what I want. This is huge. So when you start treating somebody that way, it changes everything. The dynamics of that relationship change overnight when you treat somebody the way they want to be treated. It happens every single time because that's what we all want. We all want to be treated special. We all want to be special. We really do. And so love languages is a big step to getting there. It really is. It's a big step to surviving and thriving a long-term relationship. Now, let me give you something that I've used for years and give it to people all the time. It's my big action step here. You know, besides loving yourself, in loving people the way they want to be loved. The big action step, I call it a team meeting. You know, whether it's a team or a business, your family, your relationship is a team. It's a business, however you want to look at it. And what I like to have people do on a regular basis is sit down and bring there a list. Maybe you wrote it on a card. You know, maybe you wrote on a note card or a notebook. And you wrote down everything that was driving you nuts about your partner. I mean, everything. Whether you left their underwear on the floor or the toothpaste off the cap off the toothpaste or whatever it might be. You wrote it down. These are things that gave you a little bit of, resistance. Okay. A little bit of push. Every time they did it, I'm notorious for not being the cleanest guy on the planet. And so sometimes I'll give my wife a little bit of little resistance. Okay. And then if you do it long enough, it becomes resentment. And we just talked about that. And you keep doing it because you're thick-headed, it becomes rejection. And then if you still don't get the idea, Mr. Thickhead, then it becomes repression. And then they don't want to be around you anymore. Now, we don't want to go there. So we start at resistance. We start to come up with a plan. And here's my plan as we finish up here. The plan is this. When you're sitting down with your partner, you take everything they tell you. You write it down. You look at it. And then guess what? I have my people do in a team meeting. You have 1 week to make some progress. You have 1 week to address those things on that list. Because if your partner comes back the following week and tells you the same thing, what are they going to think? I'll tell you what they're going to think. They're going to think you don't care. And they're going to be they're going to be pissed off. They're going to be angry with you. So don't do that. Work on it. If you want to be in a relationship and somebody is giving you things that's annoying the crap out of them, will you do me a favor and themselves and yourself? Take care of it. Move on it. Make some changes. You're not going to be perfect. But if you make progress, if you squeeze it down here, they're going to love you. You're going to be a rock star. They will love you. I promise you. And it's up to you. Remember, the relationship is up to you. Don't wait for them to do that. You got to do it. They may be inspired. You got to do it. And if you're in a meeting with them, they know the rules, then they're going to come to that table with stuff too. But you got to start it. And that's how this works. I promise you. All right. So there you go. Those are the keys to surviving and thriving a long-term relationship. And let me tell you one last thing. It's not easy. It's hard work. It took me serious counseling. It takes a lot of communication, and I'm still learning. Patience. I mean, it takes courage. It takes all those things. Relationships are hard, but they're worth it in the end. They're worth it if you're with the right person. But I'm not saying just to hang on. But if it's something that you want to be a part of, then there are ways to make it work if both parties want to work. Because when I've had people in my sessions and they sit down and we go through this, especially the team meeting, I've had people that wouldn't give an inch and it ended. But guess what? It didn't cost them tens of thousands of dollars in a divorce or a hard breakup. It was a few $100s for a simple meeting. And if someone's not willing to budge, you're not willing to budge. Nice. That's good to know early, isn't it, guys? Let's be honest. Versus waiting 20, 30 years down the road. So there you go. Those are the keys. I love you guys. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me as well. And but you're going to get lots of relationship advice on CC's network. I'm just throwing my hat in the ring there and say, hey, look, this is another way to look at it, and it works. And 36 years of marriage, I guess that gives me a little bit of street cred on that one. Talk to you later. This is Coach Arnie, and have a wonderful rest of your day.